Hello everyone, welcome back to English with Kayleigh. In today's video, we are analysing the highly requested Ted Hughes' poem entitled Roe Deer. Just before I get into it, I just want to highlight that I have not only this poem, but all of Hughes' poems for the CAIE collection on my test account and my Teachers Pay Teachers, and the links will be in the description below. As always, we're going to read through the poem before we get into our analysis. Be sure to stick around until the end where I go through form, meter and rhyme of the poem, and I'll leave you with an essay question that will help you to do very well in the upcoming exam. So let's read Roe Deer. In the dawn dirty light, in the biggest snow of the year, two blue dark deer stood in the road alerted. They had happened into my dimension the moment I was arriving just there. They planted their 2 or 3 years of secret deerhood clear on my snow-screen vision of the abnormal, and hesitated in the all-way disintegration and stared at me. And so, for some lasting seconds, I could think the deer were waiting for me to remember the password and sign, that the curtain had blown aside for a moment, and there were the trees were no longer trees, nor the road a road. The deer had come for me. They had ducked through a hedge, and upright they rode their legs away downhill over a snow-lonely field, towards tree dark, finally, seeming to eddy and glide and fly up away into the boil of big flakes. The snow took them, and soon their nearby hoofprints as well, revising its dawn inspiration back to the ordinary. Okay, so that is Roe Deer. So as always, we'll go through a summary and the themes, and then we'll get into the analysis. So on the snowiest day of the year, the speaker encountered 2 deer on the road. We're not sure if he's walking, or I should say the speaker, if they're walking or if they're in the car, but this has jolted them to stop and look. It seems as if the deer have appeared from another world, and they freeze in the heavy snowfall, staring at the speaker. And the speaker feels as if they're waiting for him to speak a magic word to allow him or her into their dimension. And the speaker feels the lines of reality are blurred and that the deer have come to fetch them. The deer leave, making their way into the forest, and it seems as if they whirl around in the air, and both they and their tracks disappear. And finally, the poem hints at how the snow is erasing this pure inspiration and changing it into something that belongs in the ordinary world, which almost links to the revision of the poem itself. So what theme is explored? As with many of Hughes' poems, it is, of course, the mystery of nature, the beauty of it, and the inspiration that it brings us. Okay, let's get into our stanza by stanza analysis then. So we're going to look at stanza 1 and 2 first. So the poem starts in the dawn dirty light, in the biggest snow of the year. So we've got this anaphora here of in the that's repeated. And it creates anticipation for a reader, because we want to know, what did the speaker see in this dawn dirty light in the snow? What was it? And Hughes doesn't make us wait a long time at all, because in the next line he reveals it is 2 blue dark deer. And the imagery here of this dawn dirty light, the biggest snow and the blue dark deer, the imagery really draws the reader into the scene. And then we have this kind of standalone word here after the comma, alerted. So we just get this sense of the awareness of the presence of the deer, not only from the speaker, but also from the readers as well. It snaps us to attention, that we ourselves need to pay attention and focus. So we just get this image of the deer with their heads turned, their eyes focused, and we also are very focused on what's happening. What you'll notice about the first stanza is the omission of explicit sounds, and that allows to create this very kind of muffled, quiet, snowy day. And we'll talk a little bit about the techniques that allow us to get that feeling in just a second. Stanza 2, they had happened into my dimension. So we get this idea of this very much this celestial, outer worldly experience, and that the deer, it suggested that they've arrived from another place or dimension, and they are finally here in ours. The moment I was arriving just there. So we get this very fortuitous and unexpected meeting. You know, it was unexpected, but almost it was planned by the stars that the deer were going to appear just as the speaker arrived there. So in the first stanza, just going back to this idea of sound, you can see here this alliteration of the D and the B sound, these plosive sounds, and the oo assonant sound as well, and the snow, row. So we have this O repeated sound, and it creates that soothing sound of footsteps in the snow, and this faint winter wind that kind of envelops the scene. So we move to stanzas 3 and 4, which starts with, they planted there 2 or 3 years of secret deerhood. So we get this almost unseen world becoming visible to the speaker. But what's important is it's almost as if by magic. And there's that sense of magic and inspiration that appears from nowhere throughout the poem, which is something we've already encountered in several of Hughes's other works. Clear on my snow screen vision of the abnormal, and hesitated in the all-way disintegration. There's a beautiful juxtaposition here of clarity in what the speaker sees, and also the blurred vision as well. Of course, the speaker is caught in the heavy snow, so, you know, we can imagine that his sight is blurred anyway. But this also gives the sense of these blurred boundaries between our world and this imagined one of the deer as they step into our reality, or the speaker's reality. And this word disintegration is quite important, this breakdown of something. And this could reference, you know, the physical world of watching the snow. It's almost as if the world is breaking apart and crumbling in front of us. But also this could be referenced to this kind of breaking down of the speaker's normal way of seeing the world, and seeing it in this moment of outer worldly experience, in this imagined place. So we have a lot of anaphora again, especially in stanza 4. We've got the and this anaphora is used for a different purpose here, because this one has the effect of slowing down the poem, and time, which is important when we read the last few words of the stanza, and so for some lasting seconds. It allows those seconds to be drawn out. It's created this elongated moment for the speaker. And we'll finish with the and stared at me. There's a beautiful sense of mirroring here, because the animal and the man, or the speaker, they obviously are staring at each other. So we get this idea that they're the same, but of course very different, because the speaker feels disorientated in seeing this, you know, other world come to life in front of them. So we get this sense that they're very, very different in terms of where they come from, what they are, but yet their actions mirror each other. So we get this, you know, again, blurring these lines between reality and the imagined. So in stanza 5 and stanza 6, we have enjambment here. And this enjambment is important because it draws out those seconds from the previous stanza. So not only that anaphora, but also this enjambment here, continuing those seconds for the reader and the speaker. And again, shows us how the boundaries between these worlds are intertwining in them both experiencing this moment. To remember the password and sign. So this almost seems like an invitation to enter. If only the speaker can remember the secret word, the secret code to be drawn in and accepted into the world. This gives us a slight suggestion that perhaps it isn't the first time the speaker has experienced this other world. And they describe it later on also. So we're confronted with this question of, is this the first time? Is this a return? What is the speaker going to do? Can they do anything to access the world? That the curtain had blown aside for a moment. So we have this beautiful imagery again, these glimpses beyond the real world. And with the curtain, we have these kind of connotations of the stage and what can be imagined and created, just like if you were to see an onstage production. And there were trees were no longer trees, nor the road a road. So we've got diacops here of trees and roads, these repeated words in very close succession. And this suggests that there are no words for this imagined world. And likewise, what we have to understand is that in a deer's world, or in the animal world, there is no language that is used to describe such things. And so, Hughes's choice to reflect that in his speech shows how he's trying to enter into that world. And perhaps it's an invitation to the speaker, not only to the speaker, my apologies, to the reader, that it is an invitation for us to remember the world before we try to make sense of it with words. For example, when we're babies or young children and we see the world full of awe and, there's a very different reality, we don't try to make sense of things or to make things the ordinary. We enjoy moments of magic. And that's potentially one of Hughes's messages. Stanza 7 is our only standalone stanza where the speaker says, "The deer had come for me." And in just having this one line here, it really emphasizes the thin border the speaker would need to cross to join the deer in their world. Again, playing with that idea of this blurred boundary that is it's a quick step for the speaker to enter the world. And just off of the back of that, if we look at the structure of the other stanzas, which we'll talk about later on, so stay tuned for that, we'll consider why the other stanzas are written in unrhyming couplets as well. So stanza 8, "Then they ducked through the hedge and upright they rode their legs." So seconds later, we see that they are gone, and the speaker has missed their chance. So no matter how thin the boundary, perhaps that glimpse behind the curtain, obviously coming from the previous stanzas, is the closest that one can actually get. And then we have this quite short sentence here, "Away downhill over the snow lonely field." So we've got this assonance here of the O in snow and lonely. And the word itself, the connotations suggest the disappointment and longing of the speaker. So almost at the end, 3 more stanzas to go. So stanza 9, we start with enjambment again. And the enjambment in the previous stanza and this one mimics the flying and returning of the deer to their own dimension. And this brings us back to this idea, a return to the idea of this disintegrating and something that dissolves back into their own world. Towards dark trees, finally, seeming to eddy and glide and fly up away into the boil of big flakes. And then we see the snow took them, and soon their nearby hoof prints as well. So we just get this realization here that the glimpse of the deer and their world is as fleeting as their footsteps in the snow. And it may also reference how difficult it is to remember and describe these transcendent moments with our ordinary everyday language and words. And that links to the final stanza, stanza 11, revising its dawn inspiration back to the ordinary. Again, giving us this suggestion that it's very rare and difficult to capture such moments, but not only to capture them or to witness or experience them, but also how to express them. But of course, this is exactly what Hughes is trying to do in writing this poem. So I think that it highlights how strange and magical our reality is. And that is something people often forget, especially as we grow older. And perhaps Hughes just wants to remind us that actually nothing is ordinary. There's something extraordinary in everything, even in seeing two deer walking along the road. Right, so as promised, let's look at the form, the meter and the rhyme. So in terms of form, we have 11 stanzas that are mostly made up of these unrhyming couplets. And that's what I said we discussed. So this 2x2 effect just mirrors the deer that the speaker meets along the road. So we see the two deer there, even reflected in the structure. Of course, stanza 7 is a standalone stanza, and we spoke a little bit about it. It's that invitation into the world of the deer and shows how thin the boundary is between the two. In terms of meter, as with many of Hughes's poems, especially in our collection, it's written in free verse, so no set meter is used. But interestingly, the first 12 lines are around the same length, which almost shows that balance between the two worlds. However, this changes when the deer trot off, and it highlights their movements through the snow. And in terms of rhyme, there's no rhyme scheme used, but again, going back to those techniques that Hughes uses throughout the poem, such as assonance and alliteration, it does create this musicality to the poem as a way to create the sense of snowfall in the winter. Okay, so I'll leave you with an essay question, so be sure to leave some comments down below, and we can have a good discussion ahead of your exams that are coming up. So how does Hughes vividly convey thoughts and feelings about the deer in the poem? Try to think of your 3-point sentences and share them below, and we'll have a good chat about it. Best of luck for any upcoming exams. Check out my other videos, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.